Hi, this is Kara, and welcome to my presentation on formative assessment. So what do you think of when you hear the word assessment? Do you think of a test given by a teacher, or maybe even a high-stakes test that's implemented at the state level? These are one type of assessment, but not the only kind. In fact, there's another type of assessment called formative assessment that really isn't a test at all. Formative assessment is basically when a teacher gathers data to determine what a student understands and then uses that information to adjust future activities and lessons. Formative assessment should be planned by the teacher, but it can also happen spontaneously. Assessment should not only happen at the end of a unit of instruction, but throughout the unit as well. The key piece of formative assessment is that it should drive what happens in the classroom. There are many ways that a teacher could formatively assess. Let's look at a few elements of formative assessment. The first being questioning. Questioning is a technique used by teachers to try to gain a deeper understanding of student thinking. Too often, teachers ask surface-level questions and don't allow enough wait time for students to process the question. To gain a deeper understanding of student thinking, teachers should provide more time for students to think through their answers. It's also helpful for students to discuss their answers with a partner or small group before sharing with the whole class. Now moving on to feedback. Feedback is arguably the most crucial piece of formative assessment. Teachers should provide strategic guidance to students, helping them stay on track and move towards the final learning goal. Teachers must know their students well and ask the right questions to be able to give effective feedback. Next is self-assessment. Self-assessment is important for students to be able to scaffold their own learning. First, students must know and understand the learning goal. Second, students should be able to distinguish their progress towards that goal. One possible method for self-assessment is to use a stoplight with green, yellow, and red colors, representing good, partial, or little understanding. It's important to note that students will not intuitively know how to self-assess. This must be explicitly taught by the teacher. It will take time, but it's something that will pay off huge dividends for your classroom and for your students' futures as well. To help students learn how to self-assess, have them develop the rubrics with you. Provide students examples of various qualities of work, and they can use that in determining what they should be working towards. It's clear from research that strengthening the practice of formative assessment produces significant and often substantial learning gains. So if this is true, why isn't formative assessment used more often by teachers? I think this can be attributed to two reasons. One, teachers feel a lot of pressure for their students to perform well on high-stakes tests. This pressure causes teachers to take their eyes off the true goal, which should be student learning. And as a result, teachers sacrifice depth of understanding and focus on simply covering content. Another reason that formative assessment isn't often used, and this is clear from research, is that while teachers value formative assessment, they struggle to clearly explain what it is and how it can be implemented in the classroom. It's clear that assessment should be taught just as instruction is in pre-service training for teachers. Assessment should also continue to be supported through in-service development and professional learning communities. One of the reasons that formative assessment is difficult to implement is that it's not a specific formula. Really, it's a mindset, and each teacher will implement formative assessment differently in their classroom. In summary, when thinking about formative assessment, the focus should be on several elements. One, increasing the quality of student and teacher interaction. Two, training students how to take ownership for their learning. 3, helping students to develop learning habits that will enable them to be lifelong learners. For me, I'm excited to implement formative assessment more effectively in my classroom. One change I would like to make is providing feedback to students without a grade. This will encourage students to focus on learning and what mistakes they've made, and not simply looking at a percentage grade. Another change is to be more intentional to train students how to self and peer assess. I plan to save some pieces of work from this school year to use as examples for when I have students develop rubrics next year. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it, and let's use formative assessment to drive learning and maximize learning in our classroom.